Our, excuse me, our second reading is from the wisdom of Romans, chapter 14, verses 1 through 22. Welcome those who are weak in faith, but not for the purpose of quarreling over opinions. Some believe in eating anything, while the weak eat only vegetables. Those who eat must not despise those who abstain. And those who abstain must not pass judgment on those who eat, for God has welcomed them. Who are you to pass judgment on servants of another? It is before their own Lord that they stand or fall, and they will be upheld, for our God is able to make them stand. Some judge one day to be better than another, while others judge all days to be alike. Let all be fully convinced in their own minds. Those who observe the day, observe it in honor of God. And those who eat, eat in honor of the Holy One, since they give thanks to God, while those who abstain, abstain in honor of the Lord and give thanks to God. We do not live to ourselves, and we do not die to ourselves. If we live to God. And if we die to God. And so then, whether we live or whether we die, we are God's. For to this end, Christ died and lived again, so that God might be God of both the dead and the living. Why do you pass judgment on your siblings in God? Or you, why do you despise your sibling in God? For we will all stand before the judgment seat of God. For it is written, as I live, says God, every knee shall bow to me and every tongue shall give praise to God. So then, each of us will be accountable to God. Hear the words of God for God's people. Amen. My friends, will you pray with and for me? Holy One, pour out your wisdom on us as we gather to learn your better way. Teach us to carry your grace to those whom we forgive. Open our hearts to forgiveness and to letting go, especially when it is hard. In all your names, amen. Forgiveness, it's a big topic. But forgiveness is something I have thought a lot about for multiple reasons. One is that when I was in seminary, I did an intensive study of the Shoah, the Holocaust. And I found myself wondering if people who lost their families, their communities, their homes in the horrible nightmare that was the Shoah, if they were able to forgive what had been done to them, or in fact, if they should forgive. And in my work with people who are incarcerated, I often consider the concept of forgiveness and whether those impacted by the acts that these folks were found guilty of were able to forgive. And again, if they should forgive. And the people who had been found guilty, were they able to forgive themselves? I read whatever I could, talked with my theology and ethics and Hebrew Bible professors. The latter was our leader for the trip to Poland. I talked to colleagues, I talked to friends. I gathered all the wisdom I could. And I came to a few conclusions. First is that forgiveness is as much about me as it is about the person who's wronged me, if not more so. Anger, hatred, resentment, all have been compared to luggage that someone carries with them. It's heavy. It can prevent them from living a full life, from seeing the happiness of life. It ties them to what happened to them. It's like an anchor bonding them to the crime against them. If we don't or cannot forgive, we carry that weight with us. when when I was about 16, 17, I worked during the summer as a camp counselor in training. There were 3 of us, and we didn't really fit anywhere in the camp hierarchy. We weren't in any of the units. We were technically in the responsibility of the counselor in charge of our area. I worked with the nature counselor. Someone else worked with the waterfront counselor. One worked with the art counselor, and so on. As I say, we didn't have either the responsibilities or the salary of a regular counselor. We were all volunteers. Long story short, I challenged the camp maintenance man when I thought he was being unfair to his assistant. And he didn't like that. One day, the maintenance man, we'll call him Butch, caught me alone in the kitchen. It was around 4 p.m. Lunch was over long ago, and it wasn't time quite to start dinner. And I was wandering through to see if there were any snacks. The cook used to put snacks out for the staff if we wanted them. So I was checking it out, and Butch came in very angry. He immediately got belligerent with me and told me I had no business telling him what to do, that he was in charge of his crew, and what did I know about it anyway? He physically crowded me, backing me into a corner, raising his arm, raising his fist, and threatening me. I was terrified. Butch was not only much taller than me, he was muscular, he was strong, and he was big mad. I had never been struck by an adult. And remember, I was just 16, 17. At that moment, someone came in the back door, and he stepped away, threatening me if I said anything. Well, my friend Kathy and I went to the camp counselor, and Kathy held my hand as I told the director what had happened. Butch was fired the next day. A Girl Scout camp has 0 tolerance for someone who threatens their staff or campers, especially when that staff person or camper is underage. For a long time, I held anger and fear towards Butch. He was an adult in his late 20s. I had expressed an opinion. I had never told Butch what he should do, just that I thought he was being unfair. As I grew older, however, I began to understand more about the situation. He had a wife and a child. This was the job that supported him year-round. It wasn't just a summer gig. He was also having an affair with one of the other counselors, and she saw their relationship as a summer fling, not intended to be taken seriously. So he was facing the end of that relationship. And he was abusing alcohol. Many years later, as I became more mature and more understanding, knew more about the world, I was able to forgive him. He was clearly battling demons I couldn't understand. It did not excuse his violence by any means. But I had an idea now of his knot of anxieties and fears. That didn't mean I forgot what he had done. I understood more about why, perhaps, he had acted as he had, but that didn't excuse it. In forgiving him, I was able to let go of the anger I felt. Now, it's true, the fear took a bit longer, but in the end, it was gone too. Now, my forgiving didn't change anything for Butch. I never saw him again, so he never knew that I forgave him. And I'm not sure he would have cared anyway. But I felt lighter and easier. Anger, fear, hate, they are burdens, that luggage that we carry around that slow us down and that can keep us from seeing our fellow humans as humans. Another conclusion, I cannot insist on someone else's forgiveness, whether it's towards me or a third person. What some people can forgive easily, others cannot. And if I haven't been in that person's situation, I can't lay down rules for them. I knew someone who was murdered by their child, who then died by suicide. I cannot imagine the pain the rest of the family went through. I don't know if they ever have forgiven their family member who killed a parent and themselves. At my emotional distance, I was able to forgive the perpetrator. I understand now something of their mental turmoil, their pain, their confusion. But I was not about to tell the rest of the family what or how to feel. Can you imagine the knot of emotions they must have felt? Grief at the loss of two family members, anger at the sibling child, guilt that you didn't see it coming, doubt whether you should have done something other than what you did, and probably a lot more that I have no clue about. Forgiveness is not forgetting. It is not a discounting of the pain of others or even your own pain. It is not smoothing things over for the sake of peace. Forgiveness is understanding, maybe not acceptance, but understanding. Forgiveness lets me sleep better at night. Forgiveness allows me to heal from the fear and anger I felt in that camp kitchen. Joseph, in the Genesis account we heard this morning, was able to forgive his brothers for selling him into slavery. He didn't forget it, and they didn't skip over it. They asked him to forgive them, and he did, which allowed all of them to be reconciled. But that's Joseph. I don't know if I would be able to do the same in his place, but he did. And without apparently demanding any restitution or taking any revenge on them. And there's one more thing I learned, that forgiveness is not judgment. And that's Paul's point in his letter to the Romans. We're out of our lane if we're judging our neighbors. We don't know, we can't know everything going on in their lives and exactly why they're behaving the way they are or doing the things that they're doing. And the fact is, they may not know themselves. I'm reminded of the story of the complaints I heard back in the early aughts when cell phones were not as common as they are now. And a client at a food pantry had a cell phone. And someone made the comment, if they can afford a cell phone, they can afford groceries. Well, we don't know that, do we? I can think of many reasons why someone in that situation would have a cell phone. Maybe it isn't connected to any network. The person listens to the music on it or rereads the messages. Maybe they don't have a fixed address, and so the cell is how people can get in touch with them. Maybe they're trying to apply for jobs. Well, you need a phone number for that. And you can probably think of many more possibilities. So comments like that are all a judgment that we on the outside, so superior in our supposed knowledge, know better than this person who is actually living their life knows. And we don't. We don't know better than them. Forgiveness then is something that we do for ourselves as much or more than we do it for the person who wronged us. Their soul, their spirit, their morality is not our responsibility, but how we treat them is our responsibility. And they are treasured children of God. Only you know whether there's someone to forgive in your life, or if you need forgiveness from someone else for something that you've done, or maybe you need to forgive yourself. Sometimes that last is the hardest to do, by the way. I recommend forgiveness and suspending judgment. Drop the heavy luggage of fear, anger, hatred. Leave them in the camp kitchen or wherever you were wronged. Judgment and anger are poison to the generosity of spirit that is the heart of loving one another as Christ loved us. If you can, forgive. If you can't forgive, try not to hate. In all God's names, amen.